Hey, movie fans, it's January, so you know what that means. Really, really awful movie studios just kind of churn out because they have no faith in the movies whatsoever, but they're still trying to grasp at straws, trying to make up for some box office after the big success of the Christmas season, and hoping that it'll hold them over till spring break and the big summer blockbuster movie season. Yay? Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy bad movies just as much as everyone else. I'm an avid lover of The Room, that beautiful, beautiful disaster piece that it is. I love bad movies. From the comfort of my own home, though, where I don't have to shell out my own hard-earned money at the box office, if that makes sense. So in order to celebrate the terrible month that is January movie-wise, and just bad movies in general, I'm gonna give you my top 7 worst movies that I've ever seen, but it has to be movies that I saw in the theater. So movies like The Room or Wonder Woman 1984, those don't count because I watched them at home. So without further ado, the top 7 worst movies that I've ever seen in theaters. But before we get to the list, what's your top 7? I want to know your worst theater experience you've ever had, whether it's a bad experience, bad movie, whatever it is. I want to know your movie theater horror stories down in the comments below. Now, at number 7, I have a movie that was very important to my film development education, actually, as I first really became aware of what reshoots are for G.I. Joe Retaliation. Y'all, I didn't particularly care for the first G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, but it was watchable, I guess. Then G.I. Joe Retaliation came out, and boy, did this movie feel off from the get-go. So I still distinctly remember this movie had a whole bunch of toys and merch and advertising everywhere for like 6 or 7 months before the movie came out. And I remember watching it as a kid going, huh, that's a little weird. And then I figured out why. Because this movie had extensive reshoots, and it shows. They kill off a character in the first like 15 minutes. Apparently those reshoots were to go back and add more footage of that character before they killed him off, because people were so mad that they killed off that character. That being said, the fact that that character died kind of factors into the rest of the movie, but the rest of the movie is just bad. I know the running joke for a while now has been The Rock could save any franchise. He sure as heck didn't save G.I. Joe. He did not make this movie any better. And I'm walking out of the theater going, okay, G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra is Batman Forever. This is Batman and Robin in terms of it's going to put the franchise on ice for a while. Bruce Willis was there because apparently he was a fan of G.I. Joe's as a kid, so he really, really wanted to be in it. So you got a Bruce Willis to try it at least in this movie, but oh wow, it was bad. At number 6, we have a movie that I'll be honest, I kind of figured would be pretty bad going into it, but the person I was seeing it was like, yeah, I think it'll be pretty good. He didn't see that many horror movies in general, and so when he said, let's go see The Nun, I was like, I will see it with you to support you, because you want to see this movie, and boy was I right that The Nun was hot garbage, guys. Oh my gosh. So what happened to the Conjuring franchise? The first Conjuring is great. I love it. The Conjuring 2 is half an hour longer than it should be. The Annabelle movies are incredibly hit or miss. So then we spin off to The Nun, a beloved character from the Conjuring 2 of people going, oh yeah, The Nun was so creepy. She deserves her own movie. And I was not overly enthusiastic with that. And I saw all the trailers and was going, this looks like one of those really, really bad horror movies. And sure enough, it was one of those really, really bad horror movies. Twice, not once, but twice. I was in the theater and I counted the jump scare down to the second. I was on my hand going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, it's The Nun spookiness. And it was bad, guys. It was just bad. At number 5, we have the most recent entry on this list, and the only superhero one that we'll consider today, Thor Love and Thunder. Oh my gosh, if ever there was a time that I felt the MCU jumped the shark, or in this case, jumped the screaming goat, it was absolutely Thor Love and Thunder. I love Thor Ragnarok a lot. It's one of my favorite movies in the MCU, and I like Taika Waititi as a director up until this point, and I'm starting to question my loyalty to him as a director. So I was really, really excited after Ragnarok and What We Do in the Shadows by Taika Waititi. I love that movie. Then we get Love and Thunder, and you have so ruined a character for me that I honestly don't want to see Thor anymore in the MCU. I'm tired of the character. You went from the character being at an all-time high with Ragnarok to sinking it to the point that I don't want to see anyone in that franchise anymore. It was so bad. It was like watching bad stand-up for over 2 hours and not a single joke lands, but they're gonna keep trying anyway. This isn't funny, engaging, compelling, emotional, anything at all like I came to expect coming off the back of Ragnarok. Add to the fact that we had a cancer subplot with Jane Foster's Thor, which on paper should get you to rally behind the character and really emotionally connect with her, but the fact that they don't do anything with it and doesn't actually have any emotional impact whatsoever just left me feeling hollow, which shouldn't be the case with a character and a story like that. Oh man, I think that's the moment that I pinpoint going, yeah, Marvel, you're really gonna have to earn back my trust now, please. At number 4, we go with one of those niche Nathan picks that no one else is ever really gonna talk about because it's old literature books, but I don't care, y'all. I grew up reading books like The Three Musketeers, Robin Hood, Treasure Island, and King Arthur repeatedly. The great illustrated classics are some of my favorite books as a kid, so any version of those like beloved stories, I'm absolutely gonna check out. And you attach a name like Guy Ritchie, who did the 2 Sherlock Holmes movies. He did 2019's Aladdin live-action remake, which is a whole lot better than it has any right to be. I was on board for his version of King Arthur with King Arthur Legend of the Sword. Then Heather and I saw the movie. Oh wow, that was a movie that we saw that year, and I wish that I hadn't. It was bad. It didn't start off too bad, if I remember correctly. It had that famous Guy Ritchie editing style of telling a story, and then we'll do some quick cuts as we kind of recap the story in a flashback, and then we cut forward, and it's just all over the place. Charlie Hunnam looks like he wants to be anywhere else but there for most of this movie. Jude Law is odd in it. The final fight looks like PS2 graphics. It's just an awful, uninteresting time. It was just bad. The problem is I can't really vent and express my frustration because no one remembers or cares about this movie except for me. At number 3, we have another one of those, well, Nathan, you should have known better. I know I should have known better, but I still saw Independence Day resurgence anyway, hoping that maybe it could at least capture some of the pure fun and dumb joy of the first Independence Day. But you know what they say, no Will Smith, no fun.
Ah! That's right! That's right! Get up! Get up! That's what you get! Look at you!
The problem is there's just so much of the original fun and charm and energy missing from Independence Day Resurgence. That and the fact that it took way too long for them to come out with this movie, that should never have existed at all. They bend over backwards to try and explain how it makes sense, how certain characters come back. Looking at you, Data, you definitely were dead in the first one, but then they have this weird second half that you have alien ships fighting alien ships. I still have this whole rant in my head about you can't have both ships be the same color. You need to know which ones are the good guys, which ones are the bad guys. It broke my brain. It breaks my brain, and I still laugh at the whole tail end of this movie where they're blatantly setting up sequels and spin-offs and a whole Independence Day universe that I guarantee you is not gonna happen because this movie was awful. I'm sorry, but the fact that you have a missing Will Smith, no Will Smith in this movie, you got the wrong Hemsworth in this movie. You got Liam. No offense to Liam, but he's not the charismatic one of the family. I'm just being honest. And it just did not work. You killed off all the things that we actually enjoyed about the original, and then you gave us this. I hate this movie so much. At number 2, we actually have a running joke in my family because for the most part, my parents and I, we don't like actively seek out bad movies in the theater. I'll see bad movies on my own time, as I said in the intro. But there's one movie that we're like, okay, this series and this franchise has a solid enough reputation of good to great movies that we trust that when they spin it off into something else, it'll be okay. Then we saw the first Puss in Boots, and we all collectively went, did any of us like that movie? For the first time, like, ever. Normally, when my family and I see a movie, there's at least one of us that'll defend it. But that one, we all turned to look to each other, and it was like that moment in Spaceballs.
What the hell was that?
Now, granted, I have not gone back and rewatched that movie anytime soon, so maybe it holds up a little bit better, but maybe I was just expecting something else. I hated, and my family hated, that first Puss in Boots so much that when they announced Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I was so anti that movie for the longest time, despite everyone praising its, just singing its praises. I was like, And then I finally saw it. I'm going, cool. You clearly had none of the creative team back from that first movie. Or if you did, they wanted to go something completely different. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, fantastic animated movie that's on par with other animated features of recent days. But the first Puss in Boots, wow, it's the Arel running joke of, well, it's better than Puss in Boots at least. And at number 1, I said I don't actively seek out bad movies in the theater because I don't want to waste my money. Except for once. There was one time that I was like, I have a sneaking suspicion this movie is going to be bad. But like, historically bad. And I need to witness this train wreck firsthand. And I will drag Heather and some of my other friends from college, and we will go see this movie. To see Nicolas Cage's Left Behind. Y'all, this is such a bad movie, but in like a kind of fun way. We did a 5 good things about this a long time ago. This movie is I was gonna say a train wreck, but it's a plane wreck. It was a movie that we saw, and Nicolas Cage is the only one trying. So that sounds about like most of Nicolas Cage's direct-to-DVD movies. Except this didn't go direct-to-DVD. This is in theaters, and I don't get how, because some of his direct-to-DVD movies look better. This movie looked awful, although some moments are unintentionally hilarious. Like the moment everyone just kind of gets snapped away Thanos style and just disappears. The editing in it is so wonky and bad that like this person is hugging someone else and the child just straight up apparates like Harry Potter, like she's left with the clothes, and it's just a sharp cut, and it's the most hilarious thing in the world. Also, Marty from Pirates of the Caribbean and Jordan Sparks are in this movie for reasons. Also, the moment I knew this movie was going to be infamously bad for me was they have a establishing shot of Nicolas Cage's house, and they're just going, here's the location. Y'all, the establishing shot was out of focus. It could have just been the theater that I was at, but the establishing shot, the wide shot, was out of focus. How do you get a wide shot out of focus? I would get if it's I would understand a little bit if it's a close. It was a wide shot, guys. A wide. Left Behind is bad. It's real bad. But in like the kind of it's so bad it's good way ish. Like, I'm not saying it's on the level of The Room. Very few things are. But if you want a really bad movie to laugh at every once in a while having at least 1 or 2 good performances, mostly Nicolas Cage, you could do worse, I think. But oof. But what do you guys think? What's the worst movie you've ever seen in theaters? What's your like worst nightmare scenario in a theater? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you're seeing and want to see more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.